Genesis. What does that name bring to mind? Peter Gabriel in a flower mask singing in riddles, or the iconic trio of Banks, Rutherford and Collins commanding stadiums with invisible touch? This is the story of a band that lost its visionary frontman, lost its pioneer and guitarist, gave the microphone to their drummer and faced collapse multiple times, only to reinvent itself and achieve global superstardom.
Hello everyone, this is Fred Scuttle, head of security for the Genesis tour.
The year is 1967. The picture before us isn't a rock stage, but the manicured grounds and ivy-covered walls of Charterhouse, a prestigious English boarding school. This was a world of tradition and cricket matches, not rock and roll rebellion. But inside that rigid system, two rival school bands were forming. One was called the Garden Wall, featuring a singer named Peter Gabriel, a keyboardist named Tony Banks, and drummer named Chris Stewart. The other was The Unknown, led by guitarist Mike Rutherford and Anthony Phillips. They were writing songs to escape the boredom of school life. After their respective bands dissolved, the five decided to merge their talents, combining Gabriel's theatrical vocals, Banks' classical keyboard influences, the intricate guitar work of Rutherford and Phillips, and Chris Stewart, a dynamic force on drums. They recorded a demo tape and passed it to a former Charterhouse student who had found success in the music business, Jonathan King. King, now a budding record producer, heard something unique in their songs and gave them a shot. He also gave them a name, Genesis. He explained that it suggested the beginning of a new sound and a new feeling, and marked the beginning of his own career. But the lineup was already in flux. In the summer of 1968, Chris Stewart left the group to continue with his studies. Under Jonathan King's guidance, the band recorded their debut album, From Genesis to Revelation. King, who was aiming for a sound similar to his favorite band the Bee Gees, pushed the group towards simpler pop songs. He then added last string arrangements to the tracks, a decision made without the band's consent, which horrified them when they first heard the final mix. Released in 1969, the album's title and its minimalistic black cover with gold lettering led to an infamous marketing blunder. Confused record store owners filled it away in the religious music section. As a result, the album barely sold, moving only about 650 copies initially. The band was disheartened, they had lost creative control and their debut was a commercial failure. Still, the name stuck. Genesis was born, but they were determined that their next chapter would be written on their own terms. Free from their old record deal, Genesis retreated to a secluded cottage to write and rehearse, determined to forge a new identity. They turned professional, gigging relentlessly across the UK and signing with the progressive label Charisma Records. The result was their 1970 album, Trespass. It was a huge leap forward, moody, ambitious, and steeped in the emerging progressive rock style, with longer and more complex songs. The closing track, The Knife, was a statement of intent, with lyrics by Peter Gabriel about a violent revolutionary. It was an aggressive, politically charged rocker that served as powerful hint of the darker, more dramatic sound that would soon define them. The album earned them a growing following and even reached #1 in Belgium. But behind the scenes, the pressure was taking its toll. Overwhelmed by severe stage fright and ill health from the constant touring, founding guitarist Anthony Phillips made the painful decision to leave the band. Soon after, drummer John Mayhew was also let go.
Yeah, this is John Mayhew, just for you.
Genesis was without a guitarist and drummer. For most bands, it would have been the end. It was the beginning of a turning point for Genesis. They placed an advertisement in the Melody Maker newspaper, seeking a drummer sensitive to acoustic music and a new lead guitarist. Among those who answered the call for drummer was a fresh-faced talent from the band Flamin' Youth, Phil Collins.
Would someone pass the matches and let the party start? That's amiable.
The audition was held at Peter Gabriel's parents' home. Collins arrived early, and while waiting for his turn, he took a swim in the family pool, listening to the other drummers and memorizing the complex musical parts. When it was his turn, he won the band over not just with his skilled drumming, but with his easygoing sense of humor, which contrasted with the group's more serious demeanor.
Henry dead.
He was hired in August 1970. He was just the drummer for now, but he wouldn't stay in the background for long. Soon after, in came Steve Hackett, a guitarist who had placed his own ad in Melody Maker. With his haunting innovative guitar work, the final piece was in place. Genesis was no longer just a school project. The classic lineup was born and the stage was set for something far more ambitious. Now this is where things get interesting. With Hackett and Collins on board, Genesis leveled up. Their sound got deeper, darker, more theatrical.
Nurse will tell you lies of a kingdom.
But on stage they were a visually static band, with Banks, Rutherford and Hackett often seated while performing their complex musical parts. 1971's Nursery Crime introduced the world to this new Genesis lineup. It wasn't an overnight success, but it turned heads. Tracks like The Musical Box showcased the band's knack for storytelling through sound.
But he grows his little wings, flies all the way upwards, then all the way downwards, because he's been rejected up there, told to come back as an old man at the opening of his old musical box.
Long twisting compositions packed with fantasy, tension and emotion. Then came Foxtrot, featuring the epic Supper's Ready. At 23 minutes long, it wasn't song but a suite, split into 7 distinct sections that created a long, complex musical journey. Written by Peter Gabriel, the lyrics depicted a battle between good and evil. Drawing on sources from the Book of Revelations to his wife's own spiritual experiences, giving the song a mystical quality that fans have analyzed for decades. Sensing visual void, Peter Gabriel decided to fill it himself. The transformation began unexpectedly during a concert in Dublin in late 1972. Without warning his bandmates, Gabriel disappeared during an instrumental section. And re-emerged wearing his wife's red dress and a fox's head. The band was stunned. The audience was captivated. Soon came other characters and costumes.
A flower?
The Batwings for Watcher of the Skies. And the Old Man for the Musical Box.
She's a lady, she is mine. Oh, brush back your hair.
Each designed to bring his surreal, poetic lyrics to life. Before each song, he would tell strange, dreamlike stories to set the scene. By the time Selling England by the Pound dropped in 1973.
I am the voice of Britain before the Daily Express.
Genesis was hitting their stride. The album was a critical success, even earning praise from John Lennon, who claimed it was one of the records he was listening to. Musically, the band had become a force of nature.
Old man dies, the note he left was signed on Father Thames. It seems he's drowned, selling England by the pound.
Steve Hackett was pioneering guitar techniques like tapping and sweep picking. Tony Banks created lush cinematic textures with his pioneering use of the mellotron and the ERP Pro Soloist synthesizer, while Mike Rutherford anchored the sound, seamlessly switching between bass and 12-string guitar on his signature double-necked instrument. With the song They even scored their first hit single in the United Kingdom. Gabriel's theatrical stage presence, now featuring elaborate costumes like Britannia and the Old Man, turned their concerts into something otherworldly. And then came their most ambitious project yet. The Lamp Lies Down on Broadway in 1974, a double-concept album. It was Gabriel's magnum opus, a surreal, complex story he wrote entirely on his own about a Puerto Rican street kid named Rael on a spiritual journey of self-discovery in New York City.
This particular point in the story, our hero Rael is moving underground into an almost perfect reconstruction of the streets of New York City. And with his childhood memories, he begins to think of his first romantic adventures.
But behind the scenes, this creative process was causing a rift. While Gabriel focused exclusively on the lyrics and story, the rest of the band wrote the majority of the music without him, leading to creative tensions and a sense of isolation for the frontman. The strain was compounded by the difficult birth of his first child, which left him feeling disconnected from both his family and the band. The subsequent tour was a massive undertaking, with 102 shows where the album was performed in its entirety, accompanied by a complex stage show with costume changes and multimedia projections. Gabriel informed the band of his decision to leave before the tour even began, but agreed to see it through. When the final show ended in May 1975, Peter Gabriel stunned fans and bandmates alike. He walked away. The man in the fox mask, the voice behind the madness, was gone. So Peter Gabriel is gone. The spotlight is empty. Genesis, however, launched a massive soul-crushing search for a replacement. After auditioning around 400 singers, they had exactly 0 prospects. Finally, in a moment of sheer frustration, they asked Phil Collins to teach a hopeful candidate how to sing a new track called Skunk. Collins stepped up, demonstrated the part, and sang it better than anyone who had actually auditioned. The band was stunned. They had just spent months searching for their new frontman, only to realize he'd been sitting on the drum stool the whole time.
Oh, God!
With the music press writing them off, Genesis released A Trick of the Tail in 1976. It was a triumph. Critics and fans were stunned by how much it still sounded like Genesis. Largely because Phil Collins' vocals were so effective and similar to Gabriel's. The album shot to number 3 in the UK, becoming their most successful record to date. But their success created a new problem: who would drum on tour? To solve it, they hired a legend from Yes and King Crimson, Bill Bruford. Creating a powerhouse live lineup with 2 drummers. And then came Wind and Wuthering, later that same year. Romantic, lush, and a little mysterious. Tracks like One for the Wine and Afterglow showed the band still immersed in prog, but also leaning into emotion and elegance. For the subsequent tour, Bill Bruford was unavailable, so the band hired another drumming powerhouse, Chester Thompson, known for his incredible work with Frank Zappa and Weather Report. This established the legendary live format for the rest of their career. Collins would sing at the front of the stage, then retreat behind a second drum kit to join Thompson for instrumental sections, creating a thunderous, perfectly drummed duets. As the band's sound became more collaborative, not everyone was thrilled. Steve Hackett was growing increasingly frustrated. He felt his creative contributions were being marginalized, with several of his song ideas being rejected by the band during the Wind and Wuthering sessions. Feeling creatively stifled and eager to pursue a solo career, Hackett made his exit in 1977. Mike Rutherford, who had previously handled bass and rhythm guitar, now had to take on all the lead guitar duties in the studio as well. The band made a conscious decision to move away from long, complex compositions and toward more concise songwriting. The result was 1978's Apply titled, and then there were three. While much of the album retained their progressive flair, it produced Follow You, Follow Me, a simple, direct love song that became their first UK Top 10 hit and their first US Top 40 hit. It cracked open the doors to a much wider audience, proving the trio format could be commercially successful. But before their next step, the band nearly fell apart. In 1979, with his first marriage failing, Phil Collins moved to Vancouver in a last-ditch effort to save it, putting the band on hiatus. When the marriage ended, he returned to the United Kingdom with a flood of new, deeply personal songs. That emotional turmoil directly fueled their next album, 1980's Duke. The record was a deliberate fusion of their two identities. It gave the old fans the Duke's Youth, a set of interconnected songs originally conceived as a half-hour epic that showed their prog roots were still strong. But it also gave the radio the hits. Misunderstanding, one of Collins' raw personal songs from his divorce, became a fan favorite. While the driving quirky rhythm of Turn It On Again became an unforgettable radio staple. Duke shot to #1 in the United Kingdom, a first for the band. By the early 80s, Genesis was no longer just a band with a past, they were a band of the moment. They had a new home base, a converted cowshed in Surrey they called The Farm.
So, the Genesis lobby. Over here we have very cool poster.
Which served as their private recording studio.
3, 1, 2.
For their 1981 album Abacab, they made a radical decision, jam together and record whatever came out, but immediately discard anything that sounded like the old Genesis. To capture this new sound, they brought in producer Hugh Patcham, who had just engineered Phil Collins' massively successful solo debut, Face Value. Patcham introduced a modern, punchier sonic identity, including the signature gated reverb, drum sound he had pioneered on Peter Gabriel's solo work. This collaborative spirit defined their 1983 self-titled album, where every single track was credited to Banks, Collins and Rutherford. The album cemented their pop dominance. Mama, a dark obsessive track built around a stark lean LM1 drum machine pattern, found massive success worldwide. Yet, they still honored their progressive roots with two-part Home by the Sea, a spooky, epic wrapped in a polished stadium-sized chorus. It was a sound perfectly crafted for the bigger venues and pop rock sheen of the MTV era. And then came Invisible Touch in 1986. Phil Collins was now one of the biggest solo stars in the world.
Do you like Phil Collins?
and his success only fueled the band's most ambitious project yet. If Duke cracked the door, Invisible Touch kicked it off its hinges. It became their best-selling album and made Genesis the first group in history to have 5 United States top 5 singles from one record. The hits were Invisible Touch, Throwing It All Away, Into Deep, Tonight, 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 and the massive Land of Confusion, which inspired many artists in the future. The video for Land of Confusion, created by a British satirical puppet show, Spit and Image.
Everybody listen! I found a way to make us much more popular.
You don't mean...
Yes, I'm going to reshuffle you.
Was a cultural phenomenon in itself, featuring grotesque caricatures of world leaders and celebrities, including a sweat-drenched Ronald Reagan. It was in heavy rotation on MTV and went on to win a Grammy Award. By the mid-80s, Genesis had become a three-headed monster, a pop culture anomaly. You couldn't turn on the radio without hearing either a Genesis hit, a Phil Collins solo hit, or a Mike plus the Mechanics hit. They weren't just a band, they were an industry. After the colossal Invisible Touch tour, Genesis took a 5-year hiatus to focus on solo projects. The break was hugely successful for them individually. Phil Collins released his blockbuster album.
I'm Buster Edwards. You probably never heard of me, but back in 1963, I became one of the most popular personalities of my time.
But seriously, Mike Rutherford continued his hit-making side project, Mike plus the Mechanics. And Tony Banks released his own solo work. When they returned in 1991 with We Can Dance, it was clear their popularity hadn't waned. The album was another colossal hit, reaching #1 in the United Kingdom and selling millions worldwide. It produced a string of massive singles, from the dark dramatic No Son of Mine to the ballad Hold On My Heart. Their sense of humor was also intact. The video for I Can Dance became an MTV staple by hilariously parodying the self-serious, alluring designer jeans commercials of the era. The joke was watching 3 middle-aged rock stars with their famously stiff-legged look, perfectly mocking the supermodel culture they were now a part of. The subsequent We Walk tour was a massive success, playing to sold-out stadiums across the globe. But behind the scenes, there was a sense that something was winding down. The chemistry was shifting. Phil Collins, now a global superstar in his own right, felt that his solo career and his role in Genesis had been running in parallel too long. He later admitted that the routine of writing, recording and touring within the Genesis machine was becoming a job, and that he felt it was time for a change. In March 1996, Collins officially left the band, stating a desire to focus on his solo work. After 20 years behind the kid and over a decade as a frontman, he was ready to move on. The Stadium Kings had stepped down from the throne.
And we're gonna be like Genesis after Peter Gabriel left.
You mean more popular but not as good?
Phil Collins era Genesis is not as good, huh? No reply at all? Land of Confusion? Throwing It All Away? Illegal Alien? I Can't Dance? And I'm sure I don't need to mention Invisible Touch?
The trio that had dominated the 80s was no more. But Tony Banks and Mike Rutherford decided to turn the page. They brought in a new, younger singer, Ray Wilson, a Scottish vocalist known for his work with the band Steelskin, who had recently scored a #1 United Kingdom hit with the song Inside. In 1997, the new lineup released Colonel Stations, darker, more atmospheric and returned to more art rock sound. The album was a commercial success in Europe, hitting number 2 on the United Kingdom charts. But in the United States, where the musical landscape was now dominated by alternative rock and grunge, the album barely made a dent, stalling at number 54. Tracks like Congo and Shipwrecked showed promise with Wilson's deeper, grittier voice. But while their 1998 European tour was successful, the chemistry wasn't the same. Due to the album's failure and low ticket sales in the United States, the entire North American leg of the tour was cancelled. Meanwhile, the classic members stayed busy and highly visible. Phil Collins was still a global superstar, writing the Oscar-winning soundtrack for Disney's Tarzan, and selling out solo tours. Peter Gabriel continued to push artistic boundaries with world music multimedia projects in his 2002 album Up.
Don't mess with me, my fuse is short. Believe this can these fragments caught. When I allow it to be, there's no control over me.
Steve Hackett continued his respected solo career in progressive and classical music. While Mike Rutherford revived his successful side project, Mike plus the Mechanics. Tony Banks shifted his focus to classical composition, releasing his first full orchestral album, Seven, a suite for orchestra, in 2004. By the early 2000s, Genesis was just a memory, despite constant reunion rumors. Fans' hopes were raised in 1999 when the classic five-piece lineup, Gabriel, Collins, Banks, Rutherford and Hackett, reunited in the studio to re-record the Carpet Crawlers for Greatest Hits album. This sparked serious talks for a full-length Lies Down on the Broadway reunion tour, but the plans ultimately fell through due to Gabriel's other commitments, becoming another dead end for fans. In November 2006, the classic trio announced their first tour in 15 years, after plans for a full 5-member Lamp reunion fell through. The resulting Turn It On Again the tour was a massive celebration, playing to over 500,000 fans in stadiums across Europe and North America. This at least bridged all eras, from the prog epic In the Cage to the pop perfection of Invisible Touch. Phil Collins, now struggling with nerve damage and hearing loss, stepped away from the drums and focusing entirely on vocals, while longtime touring members Daryl Stormer and Chester Thompson handled the instruments. The band's legacy was further cemented in March 2010, when the classic five-piece lineup was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Trey Anastasio, frontman of the band Fish, gave the induction speech, highlighting Genesis' influence on a new generation of musicians. In a moment that perfectly symbolized the band's ongoing story, Banks, Rutherford, Collins and Hackett attended the ceremony, but Peter Gabriel was absent, rehearsing for his own solo tour. Talk of a full reunion with Peter Gabriel surfaced again in the 2010s.
They always make... I can't stop it! I didn't think you liked Genesis.
Especially after all 5 members participated in a 2014 BBC documentary about the band. But despite meetings, nothing materialized. Gabriel was focused on his solo career, while Hackett was busy with his own successful Genesis Revisited tours. the 2007 tour seemed to be the final word. Then came 2020. Against all odds, Banks, Rutherford and Collins announced they were forming Genesis for one final run, the Last Domino tour. Delayed by the global pandemic, the tour finally kicked off in Birmingham in September 2021. The shows were visually striking, but it was a very different Phil Collins at the front.
So say you'll help me, mama, 'cause it's getting so hard.
Unable to drum and having difficulty standing for long periods due to nerve damage and other health issues, he performed the entire concert seated. Behind the drum kit, in a poignant passing of the torch, was his son Nick Collins, who had already proven his ability to handle his father's complex parts. The performances were emotional, not perfect, not flashy, but meaningful, a testament to the band's endurance and a final gift to their loyal fans. The final show took place at London's O2 Arena on March 2022. In the moment of historic closure, former frontman Peter Gabriel was in the audience to witness their last performance. From the stage, Collins announced,
"Tonight is a very special night. Of course, we're playing in London, and it's the last stop of our tour. And it's the last show for Genesis."
The final song they played was The Carpet Crawlers, a relic from a different lifetime, and in that moment, the two versions of Genesis, the art rock pioneers and the chart-topping giants, were one. So, as you can see, the story of Genesis is really the story of two completely different bands living under the same name. This has created one of the biggest debates in rock, dividing fans into two main camps. Those who believe the band picked with a sprawling, surreal journey of the Last Domino on Broadway, and those who define them by the Grammy-winning satirical puppet show of Land of Confusion. But here's the real question: are fans of the old Genesis just haters of the newer, more successful version, or is it more complicated? How many die-hard rock fans who worship the mystical journey of Supper's Ready caught themselves secretly enjoying the pop perfection of Invisible Touch, and maybe felt a little ashamed of it, like a guilty pleasure they couldn't admit to their friends? This is a debate that could go on forever, and we want to hear your take. Get down in the comments and let us know which camp do you belong to. Are you Team Gabriel, Team Collins, or do you believe the true genius of Genesis is the entire journey?